Automobilista 2's realism and realistic physics have been quite a hot topic, not just in on YouTube, but also it seems like in the forums a bit. It has been a bit of an interesting topic where some people believe something that it's realistic, some people disagreeing with certain things, and a lot of these things we don't know. You can't fully say, but if they are true or not. But something which has been a common theme, or from what I've seen, is or heard, I should say, is GT3 cars have been a certain anomaly in AMS2 physics, and also there might be something to do with the whole not transmission, but the whole moving a car in terms of power delivery, like with and electronics. In that way you can say like TC and ABS. I've heard a bit of mixed feelings on specifically TC, where it might not be the most realistic, and maybe that's what's the big issue in Automobilista 2. So to start with this, I'm going to take you onto a drive in a GT3 car, and then I'll also talk about what I mean. And before we get into Automobilista, I just want to say I have a basic knowledge of vehicle dynamics. I'm in no way an expert. These are just the conclusions I've come up with from driving this, reading a bit on vehicle dynamics, and just having a general basic understanding. So now let's get into Automobilista 2. So to do this, we're going to try I'm going to drive a combo which I know quite well. And that's this Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo 2 around Silverstone. And I will talk about some things. And it will start with the setup, where there are certain things which are actually already you can talk about in there. So if we just move into here. So here, if we go to advanced setup to drivetrain, here are where the issues are in my opinion. So first, here you have like clutch, preload, the differential. There's been a few discussions about. I don't know how true they are, but I've tried a bit, but it doesn't. I don't see that as the issue. It's mainly here. Engine braking, I have it on 10, but this is not the issue. It's traction control mainly, and also fuel map, and I'll get to it a bit later. So traction control is to limit how much slip you have. Or I will actually show you the source now, but also to talk about engine map and also TC. So here, we are on the Coach Dave Academy website. And here, they explain it quite well, in my opinion. A lot of these things which I feel like MS2 doesn't fully simulate, and that's the issue. So, here, each car in Assetto Corsa Competizione has a different traction control system, as these are produced by manufacturers of the car. Generally, each car has one adjustable setting known as TC1. Some cars may have a second called TC2. So, and as far as I know, all cars in Automobilista 2 have TC1 and TC2. I believe that's a more modern thing, and that's the GT3 Gen 2. I think the Gen 1 only have TC. And this is, I mean, in real life and not in Automobilista 2, because in Automobilista 2, you have a TC and ABS settings which go from 1 to 10. Whilst if you've driven any other sim, basically like ACC, which is the best example, each car has a different amount of TC settings. So if we open this image, you can see, if we just zoom in a bit, you can see vaguely how this car has TC 1 to 8. And this is the Ferrari. And then you can see it. TC1 controls the amount of slip that the car's wheels can have before the power is cut from the wheels. And TC2 controls the level to which the power will be cut from the engine once TC1 has engaged. And in Automobilista 2, I believe you can only change this TC1. Because if you want, it doesn't really, as I see it, you only really affect at when it cuts and not how much. Which I see as a bit of an issue, because I will show you, but driving on the streets, if you have a high enough TC, which isn't that high in the game in my opinion, is you will get it whilst just driving on the streets, you get a bit. And then it affects the engine power. But if you can like lower this to quite low, so have a lot of slip before it cuts, and then have increased TC2, so it cuts a lot, then you will have a lot more control. And then when we go to the ECU map, you have that it allows you to change the engine map of the car and the throttle maps. So here it changes the fuel consumption because of having a different throttle map with the amount of power you get at low RPMs and things. And if we go here to fuel map, it just allows it just changes it to have. It says the description is a bit wrong, because if you lower this just lowers the amount of max throttle the car has, as far as I know. So that's something which, if they can change, would be quite interesting, because then you can actually change the throttle map and instead of having one constant one. And then with TC, as I said, you can't change it. So if you just have a look here down, you have, if we just idle here, you have ABS, there you can see. Then you have engine, which I assume is the engine map, which you can, it has like some basic function here where it's just the fuel consumption. It's not really what's it called? It's not really a difference. I mean, it's not you change the throttle map, it just changes the amount of fuel into the engine. And if you just have a look here, when I change the lat. I don't change the TRH, which I assume stands for throttle. So when I drive, the throttle disengages, but you can't control how much it disengages. And as you can see, in this car at least, it's quite low. So maybe the issue is that it doesn't disengage enough. So what you would want is for it to maybe disengage a bit more. So that's somewhere I feel like Automobilista 2 can actually improve and be one of the be better, since it seems like the issue is in this not adjusting TC2. So you can just hammer on the throttle, spin like that, but then you can't really prevent it by just increasing TC2, which you can in other sims. So that's really the main thing I want. But then the other thing which you can hear is, if we go into, I believe it's somewhere in here, if you tire volume this, if they can just change it, or change the like slip noise, because it feels like, yeah, you can hear the noise there, and it feels like that noise maybe doesn't really start when the actual slip starts. And it feels like there is some difference, because also when I run my tool, which tells me how much the car is slipping at certain times, I feel like it's not fully right when connecting it to the sound. So I feel like there's a discrepancy there, because the sound, it doesn't really build up in the amount of tire screech. It starts, as I understand it or see it, it should start low and then just increase and increase. Whilst here it's like the same volume, so it feels a bit like an on-off switch, which in my opinion, doesn't really feel, or sound I should say, super realistic. So the main thing I would say, because you can see here also when I'm turning, it activates that. But if I lower it to, let's say TC2, let's try. You can see it still activates. But if we go onto the straight, maybe it doesn't activate as much. But you can see there, maybe having TC lat at 2, but then increasing the throttle from 2 to maybe 8, then maybe it can actually be quite nice, because then you have it only activates when you have a lot of slip, but then it activates quite aggressively. So like see here, it barely activates with TC2. No, TC1 barely activates when having that amount. But if that wasn't with throttle, but the point still stands that with the throttle, on throttle, it feels like it doesn't engage enough. And then to make it engage enough, it engages at certain times where you don't want it to engage. And I feel like that discrepancy can be, or that issue can be fixed by allowing us to adjust TC2. And then also another thing related to TC, which I would like, is having us be able to adjust, having each car have its own settings, like in ACC. So having like one car have like 6 settings, one car have 8. So I feel like having more individuality, I believe you want to, it's called, having it would be very nice and realistic, and also maybe make it a bit better, because I feel like all of these people who complain about Automobilista 2 being unrealistic don't really drive it so much. And also the people who drive it, they don't feel like, oh, the whole game is unrealistic or the whole sim is unrealistic, but there's this slight nuance, or that's what I read in the forums from a lot of people, that there's this thing about like tire grip where a lot of people say it has a lot of people don't say it has enough, but then the main thing, or from or a lot of things I read, is the actual traction control system being at a bit of a fault. And like here, when we jump into this car, the Lamborghini SC63, you can see you have brake balance, you have TC slip and TC gain, I think that is, so slip the amount, I assume, yeah. And see here, it changes them both at the same time, whilst in that one, it doesn't really change them as much. So I feel like there is a discrepancy there. And then also in like these high performance cars, it would be fun if you could adjust brake migration, which, if you don't know, is how much the brake balance changes when you decrease the pressure of the braking. So if we just go, so you can see it activates, and here. But if we just turn, like on the straight, you can see it activate. But if I can lower it to 2, now let's see how it actually works. So you can see that it didn't feel like it was too stable, because I feel like the gain was a bit too little. So I feel like all of it just leads upon us being able to adjust slip and gain separately will make a lot more people like Automobilista 2, and it will make it so a lot of people will make it be more feel like it's more realistic, and also adding a few extra nuances which are like per car exclusive, because there are already a few, but by these electronics, it feels like, in my opinion, the electronics simulation at currently in the throttle application, it seems like it's quite basic, because V1.6, then it was super basic, but now with V1.6 you got like a throttle by wire, was it properly simulated? By that I mean like not really throttle by wire, but like how the electric engine and the internal combustion engine properly work together. Then also brake by wire was added properly, so it only so you have a set brake pressure, and then and brake. No, I mean I set brake bias, and then it actually has that brake bias, which I feel like is quite good. But being able to have adjusted through the corner. I remember I talked to one of the devs a long time ago. I don't fully remember exactly, but I was talking about asking them to add brake migration, and I don't fully recall. I can try and find it, but if I recall, I don't take my word for it, but if I recall it, they maybe said like maybe it's not as useful as I thought it would be, but I still thought it would be nice. But I mean, the cars have it for a reason, so I don't fully know what's happening there. But then now, after they added that, I feel like they should also add this properly simulated throttle map where you can change it, TCU2 being able to change separately from TC1. ABS I feel like is quite good, and I haven't heard really any complaints from it. But what I have heard, some things, or not really some things, but something which maybe is good to talk about in this video, is James Baldwin, where he is a McLaren driver. He has driven a McLaren GT3 around Spa, in Automobilista 2, in race room, and also in real life. So I feel like his comments, because I don't fully remember what his comments were, but if I recall correctly, his comments were like, it was fun, but it wasn't really it was more of a game and less of a simulator, whatever that means. But then also I have a few comments about his testing, because he took a meta setup which had a few issues and it was okay, I guess. And then he didn't try with the default setup, but as I understand it, he tried it with the default setup in race room, so I don't fully understand why he couldn't use it in Automobilista 2. And then he complained about coasting, where the engine braking was actually at the maximum. So he had maximum engine braking, which is an easy setting to change. So he could have changed that to fix it. And then people were commenting, like, why use a meta setup? Why don't use the default setup? And he commented something weird, I don't fully remember. But I feel like James Baldwin, yes, he's a GT3 driver, but if you don't do proper testing, all this knowledge you have maybe can't be fully applied because you're doing something faulty. And in my opinion, he didn't do the same test with race room and Automobilista 2 fully, which means like his comments are a bit skewed and a bit weird. But that could just be me being biased, but take it as you see. And if we check here, yes, I found it. So I don't know how much I can actually show because it was in the beta part. So I said I wish brake migration gets added now that brake by wire has been added. And one of the devs basically said, okay, so they didn't say what I said, so you who have watched this part can say that I made a mistake in the video, and I did make a mistake earlier in the video. But what he said was basically what brake by wire already does. And then I said, but what if I want the brake bias to change during the corner? And they said it will be forwarded, but don't expect anything short term. So hopefully now this year it can get added, because I see it as a big plus. Because why not have all of these cool features which are in real life, and they are obviously in real life for a reason, because why have something if you're not going to use it? And I'm not going to go into details about certain real life examples, but you have the Jordan, I believe it was, Jordan, which had some form of launch control. You have some other cars which I think like had TC, and there was some weird option. And they have Red Bull with this thing last year where they said you were able to change it. They said they didn't change it. But I see it as in general, not just at Red Bull. But if you have something which will give you an advantage and you can change it so it's not detectable, then why not do it? Because like Ferrari did with their engines, they changed their fuel consumption slightly to gain more power because it wasn't detecting it was detected at certain frequencies, so to just alter the fuel flow to evade this frequency. So in conclusion, basically, from just concluding from this 20 minutes of talking, basically all I want is all these electronics, traction control, TC1, TC2, brake, brake migration. Yeah, basically that to be properly simulated, because I feel like those will if they get properly simulated in the game, then it will make it more realistic and a lot less people will actually complain. Then also the tire sounds, I feel like it should be less of a switch and more dynamic in the way that it should maybe ramp up. Obviously, I'm no expert, as I said before, so if there are any experts out there, I know there are quite a few, maybe disagree with me, some agree with me, comment down below. And while you're down there, please hit the like button and also subscribe. My next video, we'll have to see what it's on, because this is the last video of February, and I assume, because I'm recording this on the Sunday, the week before, I assume there won't have been any MS2 updates this February. And January, I won't count as a month for a possible update, because I feel like they did a update in January, and then the content are not to talk about. So I feel like V1.6 officially ended like in January, early February. So I feel like that cycle just poof. So give them time. I feel like, in my opinion, if I was going to predict, because I actually have no bloody idea. All the information you have, I have. I don't have anything else. I mean, all the information I have, you have. So I feel like starting in March, there will be a lot of content coming, because February, like a little bit of chill, getting to build up, ramp up, just work on some cars, work on some tracks, and then March, drop things. And hopefully with V1.7, which will add a few tire things, they will add all of these electronics I've talked about in the video. But in my future videos, we'll have to see. I might find an interesting topic like this one to talk about, or I might find I should talk about the car, maybe find a setup AC Evo to properly work so I can actually record a video on it. Maybe you want to see a video on a different game. I have other ideas. I have another game which I like to play, which you can actually drive in for some reason. So I can try and figure that out. But until then, I've been Racing Legend. You've been my amazing viewers. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.